The next article I wanted to talk about is on NBCnews.com. The title is North Carolina Lieutenant Governor Faces Calls to Resign for Calling LGBTQ People, quote unquote. It's a pretty rough video to watch, and it's not just one, it's a series of videos. So I wanted to give these a watch, but let me read some of this article first, see what he had to say. Multiple North Carolina state representatives are demanding that Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson, a Republican, resign after a video surfaced showing him describing the LGBTQ community as, quote-unquote, the video, first shared by Right Wing Watch, a project of the progressive advocacy group People for the American Way, shows Robinson speaking at the Asbury Baptist Church in Seagrove during a visit in June, local NBC affiliate WRAL reported. Let's watch the clip because now it's starting to quote it. Let's see what he had to say for himself. This is early October 2021.
It is flat out child abuse. Take your children and tell them they have to attend school. Don't have a choice.
Is this dude like a sovereign citizen or something? Seriously? He is against education? You don't actually have to send your child to school. That's not a legal requirement. You have the choice of homeschooling them if you want, or sending them to private school if that's what you prefer. I mean, you have a billion options, but your child has to have an education one way or another. That's the law, and I think that's a fantastic law. If what he's arguing against here is educating your children at all, I just can't see where this guy is. I can't meet in the middle with him. I can't meet him anywhere. I can't figure out what would bring him to the conclusion that literally any education, even if it's coming from the parents, is bad. What is he even talking about? Oh, and by the way, if you notice, this is a Bible quote on the front. It's kind of hard to make out. It says, "This do in remembrance of me." I think it's from the Gospels where they were doing the memorial service for him before he died or whatever. Anyways, this is a political actor, a lieutenant governor of North Carolina, preaching at a church. I'm not a huge fan of the mixture of church and state. I feel like there aren't enough rules regulating that, but here we are.
Don't have a choice. And then some of them will tell them they don't want you to have a choice where they go to school. You have to send your children here to school.
That's just nonsense. This is him piggybacking off of this right-wing idea that you should be able to send your kid to an outside district. It's actually an extremely regressive and harmful policy, and it's their answer to serious problems that exist in the education system, and it would not be a solution to those problems. I don't want to get into that specific issue right now, but if you want, you can homeschool your kid. That's an option you have. Or you can send them to a private school or a charter school, or hire a private tutor to teach your kid if you want. I mean, there are all kinds of options. Just keep all of that in mind as we continue through and listen to what he has to say about this.
Then when they get there, what do they teach them? Teach them a bunch of stuff about how to hate America. Teach them a bunch of stuff about why they're racist.
What school did he go to? I didn't learn any of that shit. Although I was in West Virginia, so you'd think in West Virginia schools would be more like patriotic, quote unquote, but I don't know. They just kind of left all of that out. I did have a single civics class for like 1 year in high school, and they just kind of taught us about how the government works, and that was about it. I mean, they didn't teach me about hating America or any of that shit. I don't even know what he's talking about right now. Did he just buy into the propaganda, or is he one of the people creating it? I mean, this is certainly propaganda that he's spreading right now. So whether it's intentional or not, he is spreading the propaganda. I just can't figure out if he's doing it knowingly or unknowingly.
Why they're racist. Teach them a bunch of stuff about transgenderism and homosexuality.
What do schools teach about transgenderism and homosexuality, quote unquote? I have no idea what he's even talking about right now. This is just complete nonsense.
I'm saying this now, and I've been saying it, and I don't care who likes it. Those issues have no place in a school. There's no reason anybody anywhere in America should be telling any child about transgenderism, homosexuality, any of that filth. And yes, I called it filth. And if you don't like it that I called it filth, come see me and I'll explain it to you. It's time for us to stop letting these children be abused at these schools. And it's not going to happen till the people of God stand up and demand different.
I don't insult people. Really, I don't. It's so rare. I challenge you to go through my videos and count the number of insults that you've heard me make in the past 12 months on my main channel or my podcast, on any of my public videos. I've been known to insult people in jest on the live streams from time to time, but I just don't believe in it. But sometimes there's just some shit that's inexcusable. Absolutely inexcusable and fucking disgusting. You know, I wasn't even sure if I was going to cover this story. He originally said this at least a month ago, and I had the choice of covering this back then, like 4 podcasts ago, but I decided to just sit on it and wait, because usually I try to cover subjects on here that are more focused on religion and pastors than political. I want to cover the melding of church and state if I can, but sometimes things pop up that are so absolutely horrifically disgusting that I feel compelled to cover it anyways. In this case, I actually justified the coverage because pastors started defending this guy, coming out of the woodwork and saying he's correct about this stuff. A lieutenant governor saying this. But ultimately, I feel like this deserved my attention more than any other subject I could have covered. How fucking sick is this? That's fucking disgusting, man. He actually came out and made another statement recently on, this is mid-October. So let's give this clip a watch and see what he had to say for himself.
August 18th, 1968, I was born in L. Richardson Hospital for one reason. I was born in L. Richardson Hospital to be one of God's freedom fighters.
You know the difference between a terrorist and a freedom fighter, right? Which side you're on. That's the only difference. Everybody has heard that saying. That's like one of the most common sayings ever when you're dealing with extremist groups like this. You know, back in the 80s, there was a proxy war going on between the US and Russia, and it was being fought in Afghanistan, I believe. So the US and the Soviet Union actually were fighting each other in Afghanistan through a proxy war, and the US was arming certain factions of Afghans. The Soviet Union was arming other factions. Do you know which people were on the US's side in that proxy war? Osama bin Laden was on the US's side during that proxy war in Afghanistan. He was on the US's side. We called him a freedom fighter. One day in 2001, that suddenly switched from freedom fighter to terrorist. Actually, it was a little bit before 2001. We knew that he was kind of gunning for us, if you will, like long before anything actually happened. So he was kind of on the U.S. shit list for a while leading up to that. But the point is, freedom fighter and terrorist are the exact same thing. The only difference is which side you're on. To me, this reads as he's telling us that he's a terrorist. He seems to be openly admitting it.
I was born in L. Richardson Hospital to be one of God's freedom fighters. Bottom line, nothing else. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. I wasn't born to waver, wasn't born to quiver.
You know, the dude could have said one of God's fighters. He could have left it at that, and it probably would have been okay. He didn't leave it at that. He said freedom fighter. That specific term used to refer to terrorists. That's what the term means.
I was not born to make nice. That's why my mother named me Mark, after the God of war. Because I'm here to literally make war on the devil.
To literally make war on the devil.
I said the other night, I want to make the gates of hell tremble. I just don't want to make the gates of hell tremble. I want to make the literal foundations of hell tremble. Amen. And I want this nation to join with me and do it.
That's concerning rhetoric. That seems like stochastic terrorism or borderline stochastic terrorism content that he's saying here. But, you know, I don't think it is. I don't think what he's saying here is even intended to encourage other people to go down this path. Charlie Kirk recently got a question from an audience member. Guy was saying,
at this point, we're living under corporate and medical fascism. This is tyranny. When do we get to use the guns? No, and I'm not, that's not a joke. I'm not saying it like that. I mean, literally, where's the line? How many elections are they going to steal before we these people?
And Charlie Kirk says, no, I'm going to denounce that. Of course, it was Charlie Kirk's fault in the first place that his audience had reached that point. Because of his rhetoric, they reached that point as a direct result of the things that Charlie Kirk said. That is stochastic terrorism. He contributed to the problem of stochastic terrorism, getting people revved up into a blood frenzy until they're willing to do anything to accomplish their goals. They're willing to call themselves freedom fighters. But you know what? Mark Robinson, the governor here, he doesn't sound like Charlie Kirk sounded when he was revving people into a blood frenzy. He sounds like one of the audience members who was whipped into the blood frenzy. He sounds like somebody who's been convinced that the right thing is to literally wage war on the devil. And the devil is, of course, whoever he defines him to be. Whoever his enemy is in that moment. This guy doesn't seem like the person on the other end whipping people into the blood frenzy. I think he is the result of stochastic terrorism. He is the one that's going to take action or encourage others to. That's concerning. He showed up at a political event at the end of October. October wasn't a good month for this guy because at the beginning of October, I believe, maybe the end of September, that's when his original comments about homosexuality and transgenderism, as he called it, that's when he originally said all that stuff. Late September, early October. So all through October, he basically went on this tour across North Carolina and doing political events and public appearances, trying to not really repair his reputation because he was happy with where his reputation was. He's being lambasted by the news and called out. Like I said, I mean, NBC News wrote an article about this guy that we were reading a minute ago. He was all over the news, but he's not ashamed of that. He revels in it. He loves what he said and the blowback that he's getting because he believes he's fighting for a righteous cause. So here's one of his political events that he went to recently. Late October 2021 is when he went to this. Before we listen to this, notice what his sign says up front here. Return America, protecting and restoring our American biblical heritage. Let's give this a listen.
You can leave God's country and we will not miss you.
You can leave God's country and we will not miss you, is what he said, by the way. I'll translate a little bit of this because it's kind of hard to hear because tiny little speakers here that probably being picked up on terrible microphones.
You are the living embodiment of those people. As you stand here today, stand with courage, stand with conviction, and tell our enemies on the other side of the aisle that would drag this nation down into a socialist hellhole that you will only do it as you run past me, laying on the ground, choking on my own blood, because I will not give up this nation to you. It is not yours. You did not build it. You did not defend it, and you will not own it. We will.
We will. Who do you think he's talking about when he says we?
The Christian patriots of this nation will own this nation and rule this nation.
Oh, there's our answer, I suppose, huh? The Christian patriots will own this nation. That is fucking concerning. He wants a full-blown theocracy. He wants a dictatorship where God is at the head of it, or whoever happens to speak for God in that immediate moment, who I'm sure he believes is Donald Trump at all times, forever. I wonder who they're going to pick up after Trump dies. I mean, in 10 years or however long it's going to be. I wonder which extremist political figure they're going to pick up on and pass on these seemingly supernatural attributes to. Like, who are they going to pass this on to?
And help freedom survive for future generations. Stand strong, stand proud. Let's save this state and nation. Let's be the people who preserve freedom for the future. God bless you all. God bless the great state of North Carolina, and God bless the United States of America.
This guy is so propagandized. He isn't just one person. He represents millions of people. I've estimated, based on some studies, that there are probably roughly around 20 million QAnon members give or take. Could be more, could be a little bit less maybe. I don't think it's much less than 20 million though. And by the way, that's more Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormons, vegans, Scientologists, and Christian Scientists than are in the United States combined. It's a hell of a lot of QAnoners. That's just the QAnoners. There are around 80 million evangelicals in the United States, give or take. This shit should be concerning to us. He is not just one person. He represents a massive movement, and we are going to have to deal with this movement as a society at some point. Hopefully they come to their senses instead of bringing the institutions of the United States down around us.